All right, we're about to dive into something pretty dark. We're going to open up a vast and honestly chilling catalog. It's a list that covers a full century of Russian history, and it documents some of the most prolific serial killers the world has ever seen. So let's get into it. First things first, let's get on the same page. What exactly are we talking about when we say serial killer? Well, the FBI's definition is a really good starting point. It's not about one single terrible event. It's about a pattern, two or more separate murders. This is the framework we're going to be using as we go through this. Okay, now this is where things get really interesting. Look at these numbers. Before 1917, so pre-revolution, there are only 3 killers on this list. Then, during the entire 70-plus years of the Soviet Union, that number jumps to 44. But then look at what happens after 1991. The number just explodes to 174. So what happened? Was it the societal chaos, the breakdown of the state, something else? It's a huge question. And to even begin to answer that, we can't just stare at data points on a chart. We have to look at the people. So to really understand the scope of this list, we need to rewind back to the very beginning of the Soviet era and focus on one of its first documented cases. So let's look at our case study, the man who earned the grim nickname the Wolf of Moscow, Vasily Komarov. His story, well, it gives us a stark window into the chaos of the early Soviet Union, and it really sets a pattern that we're going to see echoed for decades. So get this, Komarov wasn't even his real name. He was born Vasily Petropov. He fought in the Russian Civil War, got captured but managed to escape, and he changed his name to hide his past. By 1920, he's in Moscow working as a horse trader while the country is just trying to find its footing. And it's right then, in 1921, that he starts his killing spree. And his method, it was just brutally simple. He had this chilling 4-step formula down to a science. He'd find a customer who wanted to buy a horse, invite them home, offer them some vodka to, seal the deal, and then he'd attack them with a hammer. After that, he'd stuff the body in a sack and just dump it. This wasn't a crime of passion. It was like some kind of grotesque business model. In just 2 years, from 1921 to 1923, he confessed to murdering 33 men. 33! All for whatever small amount of money they were carrying. And what makes this even more disturbing is that his wife, Sophia, she eventually found out, and she started to participate in the crimes. So this really gets to the crucial point, his mindset. When he was finally caught and they interviewed him, he described the act of murder with these 3 words: an awfully easy job. Think about that for a second. No remorse, no hesitation, just a cold, detached efficiency. And that psychological profile is something we're going to see again and again. Okay, so with Komarov's case as our anchor, let's zoom back out and look at the broader list. His story is just one of over 200, and each one has its own horrifying details. But they start to share some really unsettling patterns. And you've got to understand, this isn't just a modern thing. I mean, way back before the revolution, you had Daria Saltykova, a noblewoman who tortured and killed dozens of her serfs. Then in the late Soviet era, the world heard about Andrei Chikatilo, the Rostov Ripper. And much more recently, in the 2000s, you have Alexander Pichushkin, the chessboard killer, who was trying to kill 64 people, one for each square on a chessboard. The methods and motives change, but the horror stays constant. One of the most striking patterns you'll find when you look at this list is the power of the nicknames. These aren't just sensational names the media makes up. They often distill the absolute essence of a killer's crimes into a memorable and, frankly, terrifying moniker. I mean, the monikers alone tell a story. The alligator who cannibalized his victims. Satan in a skirt who killed for vodka money. Dr. Death who murdered his patients. Then you've got the Granny Ripper, the werewolf, the grim maniac, and Yeltsin Sanitary, a guy who claimed he was cleansing the city. Each name is its own little chapter of horror. But as we get near the end here, there's one final, absolutely crucial point to understand. For all the names we know, for all the stories that have been told, this list is far from complete. The source material itself says it plainly. This list is incomplete. There are whole sections dedicated to unidentified killers, like the Danilovsky maniac who's suspected of murdering at least 7 young women and is still out there, at large. It's a pretty chilling reminder that some of these stories, they don't have a final chapter. Which leaves us with a final question. From the Wolf of Moscow in the 1920s all the way to the unidentified killers of today, we've seen this really dark history unfold. So why do we study it? Why does this grim catalog continue to both fascinate and horrify us in equal measure? That's the question that really lingers.